This is a rough start for the Phoenix Suns already, and the season hasn't even tipped off, and I can't believe this. Jusuf Nurkic is out for the first preseason game with a finger injury, and we're going to have to see the likes of Mason Plumlee and Osa Ighodaro have to step up for this squad and really show out how they're going to fit in Mike Budenholzer's squad. So how is this going to look for the Suns already dealing with injury bugs going into the season? We're going to be diving into all of that and more on this episode of Suns Digest. I'm Bruce Veliz. And you guys have been absolutely fantastic over the offseason, showing CJ your love and support. We really do appreciate it. With the preseason kicking off tomorrow, the Suns are gearing up for the regular season. So if you want to make sure you stay up to date on everything revolving around this team, keep hitting that like button to stay in the algorithm and make sure to hit that subscribe button because we'll have it breaking down all for you guys this year. Without further ado, let's dive into the topic at hand. Make sure to grab the snack. And like I said in the introduction, we're going to be going over the new Jusuf Nurkic injury that was just announced this afternoon. So let's get into all the details. As we could see, courtesy of Gerald Bourguet, but a lot of other Phoenix Suns reporters were also on this news. Jusuf Nurkic is going to be out tomorrow with a left middle finger injury, where he'll be reevaluated in 1 week. And this is just not great for the Phoenix Suns already, starting off their season. In my opinion, the Suns last season, as we all saw, dealt with the injury bug. Some of their star players, Jusuf Nurkic, also had some smaller injuries and was out for some time. And this clearly hindered the Suns in their playoff hopes in making a deeper playoff run. And it's already starting off at the beginning of this year before the season starts. That's not great either. Now, Jusuf Nurkic is a player that we talked about at Media Day, is expected to take a bigger role with this Suns team as well. If we want to look at this, want to look at some quotes and stuff like that. We broke that down in a previous video talking about Jusuf Nurkic, but you can also check out my article on Last Word Sports, where I also broke down how changing Jusuf Nurkic's role can amplify the Suns, where he had a bunch of numerous quotes talking about how he was going to utilize his three more. He slimmed down a little bit, feels a little bit more quicker, feels a little bit more faster, feels the best he's ever been. And I was talking about how this was going to be a major impact for the Suns, having Jusuf Nurkic being that top tier center like he was back in Portland, but also just having him out there on the court is just going to be huge for the Suns and necessary for contending. Now, with the Suns entering the preseason, he is already out and is going to be reevaluated, and this injury could linger on into the season. Now, I don't think it necessarily is going to. I think he'll be perfectly fine. But with him even missing preseason reps and just missing some ample opportunities with this squad, that's not good. He wants to be able to gel, work in, be able to play with these guys. And having a player already on the injury report is just not something that Suns fans specifically want to see because we want to make the playoffs. We want to be healthy. We want to be a top contending team. And already starting it off before the first preseason game starts, and we already got somebody on the injury report, is already off to a bad start. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. How do you guys feel about this Jusuf Nurkic injury? But with Jusuf Nurkic being down, we're going to get into some more implications with the Suns because we're going to dive in next on how this affects the Suns. Because obviously, Jusuf Nurkic is their starting center. He was announced in that starting lineup in that press conference with Mike Budenholzer before the season had even started, where we got the announced starting lineup, which was the one that we all kind of infer was going to be, which was Tyus Jones, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and Jusuf Nurkic. Now, with Jusuf Nurkic not being in that lineup, who is going to step up and play in that center spot? Well, let's dive in and let's look at this. First, let's look at the salary cap of the Suns and looking how this is going to affect the Suns. Because, like I said, Jusuf Nurkic is making around $18 million. He is the fourth highest paid player on this Suns team behind the big three. And that just goes to show you how much of a big of a role he needs to play and to be an impacting force with this team already. So, with him being out and being the fourth highest paid player is already not great. But when we look at the center department here, we can see, courtesy of Spot Track as well, that the Suns do have some other centers listed under the roster. And Mason Plumlee, who they went out and got in free agency. They have Oso Ighodaro, who they drafted in the draft this season. And they also have Frank Kaminsky, who they brought in on an Exhibit 10-day deal, who has been working out with the Suns and could earn one of those last roster spots. So we're going to dive in. We're going to look at all three of these players and how seemingly they could affect the Suns if they were to be brought in or utilized with this Suns team, particularly in tomorrow's game as well, because Suns, like we said, are taking on the Los Angeles Lakers tomorrow in their first preseason game, and that will be very, very exciting to dive in and break down as well. But like I said, and like I had mentioned earlier, when looking at that center group, the first person I want to talk about besides Nurkic is Frank Kaminsky because he's probably the player that out of all three of these guys is going to be the least expected to take over for Jusuf Nurkic's role, just because he's coming in on an Exhibit 10 day. Now, Frank Kaminsky has apparently been working out with this team in Phoenix. He has a house over in Phoenix and has been, warming up and been training with this team. And ultimately, that's what has allowed him to earn a training camp deal. Monte Morris spoke out highly about him on Twitter, saying that he showed up and was balling out. So that only goes to show you that the Suns fans and Suns players are very happy about Frank being back, but also that he's showing in his work. Now with Frank, I could see him being on the Valley Suns G League team as well, just as like a nice veteran for the start of the year, and then being brought up if there's some injuries with this team, or maybe if the youth movement isn't working how the Suns want to, and they still want to contend, they could bring a guy in Frank up. But ultimately, I do think the Suns will keep that last roster spot open, and I do think that Frank will have to work his way up to the Suns, not just get it gifted to him. But that's my personal opinion. We'll still have to wait and see. The Suns could give him that last roster spot, specifically with Nurkic out, and if he did ball out in the game on tomorrow, then I could see him earning that spot as well. It all depends on how long this injury is going to affect Nurkic. And looking at the other two players as well, Mason Plumlee was their veteran backup center that they went out and acquired to be a little bit of an interior paint defender on the bench. Unfortunately, with the Suns last season, they went out and got Drew Eubanks, who they thought was going to be that type of player, and he just was not for the Phoenix Suns. So with going out and getting a player in Mason Plumlee, that allows them to have another shot blocker, rim protector, a guy that's going to be in the paint and defend the paint for the second unit, and you want one of those grizzled veterans. It's also noted that Mason's brother Miles played with the Suns as well and also had a good time in Phoenix. So maybe that can bring some juice over. Maybe the Plumlees can share a little bit of that, and we can see that out of Mason with him stepping up. That's the player that I would expect to be most in the starting lineup tomorrow. And then next, talking about Oso Ighodaro, someone not only the Phoenix Suns fans are high on, not only are the players high on, but also the front office as well. As we all know, the Suns wanted to draft Oso Ighodaro, and they ultimately traded back in the first round on draft day with the Nuggets to get Ryan Dunn, a player that they also really wanted at that wing position, but also to get a second round pick in the next day to then be able to get Oso Ighodaro. They ended up ultimately trading up to be able to select the player that they wanted, which I think was very, very solid. But the Suns front office did something special. They knew Iguodala would be available in the second round. They knew they liked him. They traded and made sure they got a pick to be able to circulate and get him, and then used their additional draft capital from that draft night trade to move up to be able to get the selected player. So I think that was fantastic. When coming in, Iguodala in the summer league was also a very spectacular piece, and I think if he puts on some size and some weight, he can definitely be a quality center in this league. So with a player like Oso Ighodaro, he's another one that I'm looking for, and one of the key players I'm looking to watch tomorrow in that game in this the preseason. I know that the starters aren't going to play much anyways, so players like Ighodaro, right, like Ryan Dunn, like some of these other younger guys, maybe even Plumlee and Kaminsky are going to be the players we want to keep an eye on, because if Nurkic is going to be dealing with this finger injury into the preseason or even into the season or throughout the season, we're going to need some solidified big men. And I think Iguodaro can take that leap. I don't think it's necessarily going to be impactful right from the jump. I think we'll see some beautiful flashes tomorrow in his game that will definitely keep some fans, keeping an eye on him and definitely watching him. And hopefully he could grow to possibly be that backup big for this Suns team once the season does get into that area, because he's shown that he can score in the paint, been a pretty solid shot blocker as well. And I really think that with Nurkic out, this is the player the Suns drafted. This is the player that the front office really wanted, and this is a player that they believe in. So if anybody, they're going to want to see him grow and kind of overtake Plumlee's role eventually. And I think maybe that could be the case if Nurkic is dealing with some injuries. We'll have to see how he looks in the preseason. But let me know what you guys think down below. Obviously, the Suns do have some, depth at that center position with Plumlee, with Iguodala, with Kaminsky to tomorrow, that they won't see any issues with the Los Angeles Lakers. Again, it's preseason. If they lose the game, it's not an overreaction. Do not freak out. It's just nice to see these players back in action and kind of see these young players trying to find for some roles. Some other players I'm interested in seeing tomorrow as well are Josh Okogie, players in Damian Lee, players that are still fighting for those key rotational spots on this team. Another player, Bull, who I think kind of fits more in that power forward position, but maybe could translate into that center position as well with this team. Maybe we see him get some more ample run tomorrow as well as they're trying to figure out that center group. Overall, all in all, I think this game tomorrow is going to be very exciting. They are taking on the Lakers, who do not have LeBron and AD tonight, or did not have LeBron and AD yesterday, excuse me, and are expected to have one of them play over the weekend. So I do expect both of those guys to be playing in tomorrow's game, which will be very exciting to see as well, as we'll get to see KD and Book and Devin play as well. It'll be a very good matchup. Tyus as well in the orange and purple. It's gonna be a great game. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. How do you guys feel about the video? What are your guys' thoughts about this injury? I think it's absolutely atrocious that the Suns are already seeing the injury bug hit them before the season starts, and it's already not going great. But I still am confident in this squad. Like I said, you guys have been absolutely fantastic, showing your love and support over the entire offseason. You've been killing it. Thank you guys so much, and I catch you guys in the next video. Have a great rest of your day, and go Phoenix Suns.